blood of the Lamb was spilled. Grace, grace, God's grace, grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Grace, grace, God's grace, grace that is greater than all our sin. Sin and despair like the sea wave cold threaten the soul with infinite loss. Grace that is greater, yes, grace untold, points to the refuge, the mighty cross. Marvelous grace, infinite grace, grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Grace, grace, marvelous grace, grace that is greater than all our sins. Marvelous, infinite, matchless grace, freely bestowed on all who believe. You that are longing to see his face, will you this moment his grace receive? Grace, grace, marvelous grace, grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Grace, grace, infinite grace, grace that is greater than all our sin. Grace that is greater than all our sins.
Let the church say amen. I might sound like all three of them when we get to heaven. Okay, that was just extremely melodious. Right now, when they give me the microphone, they just cut it off. Because nobody wants to hear Brother Mentee sing. No one wants to hear Brother Mentee sing right now. But one day, you will hear me screaming from the far reaches of one galaxy to another, praising God. We are going to study Judges. I am still lingering around in Judges because between the Bible and the spirit of prophecy, there's so much I glean from this particular section of the Bible recently, because although all the Bible applies to us, I'm becoming acutely aware of why the children of Israel had to be in such a state for a certain amount of time that the Lord would keep having to raise somebody up to deliver them. Judges 6 through 8 and Patriarchs and Prophets, chapter 53. Once again, let us sample this here. Judges 6, verse 1, read with me. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of Midian 7 years. Imagine this. We are the camp of Israel. Let's say these 4 sections of pews are the camp of Israel. Because the children of Israel did not wipe out the Midians when they initially got there, the Midians started dwelling amongst the children of Israel. So here it is, our camp, we Israelites, but in the pew right next to you, Sister Lottie, are all Midianites. Right next to you, Sister Janet, all Midianites. In the front pew, Midianites, right? If each one of us was an Israelite structure, the entire pew to the left, to the right, to the front, and to the back of you are Midianite structures. Those are Midianite homes. Those are people who do not believe what the children of Israel believe, but yet and still, because they did not wipe them out, drive them off the land, now they dwelling amongst them. That's what's happening right here. Reading on. And the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel. And because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made them the dens, which are in the mountains and caves and strongholds. So they became so overbearing amongst in their own land. So all this right here, city, we dwelling in the city, this our city. The Lord gave it to us. But because we didn't run these people off the reservation, now they start building up structures, subdivisions, condos, whatever you want to call it, but they living amongst us. And they became so overbearing that now Leroy had to lift up his family and go to the mountains and live. Does that sound familiar? Can you draw a correlation right now? That's what's going on right now. Reading on. And so it was when Israel had sown that the Midianites came up, and the Amalekites and the children of the east, even they came up against them. I need a clarification in this. That's why we ended up in chapter 53. They sown, they planted. And when harvest came, guess what the Midianites did? Walk right into your backyard, Sister Paula, and start picking your grapes. Walk right into Akira's backyard and just start picking the fruit right off of her trees. And because there was so many of them, what you gonna do? Jawan, you got 5 or 6 of your neighbors in your neighborhood just coming in your garden, helping themselves to your chives and your oranges, all this kind of stuff. That's what the Midianites are doing right now. And daring them to do anything about it. Right? Because they didn't run them off. They were supposed to have ran them off when Moses was their leader. So now we got, from the time of Moses' death, Joshua, the early judges, to now, these people are still dwelling amongst them. And they have become a hardcore burden to them. Even so, in verse number 4, it says, and they encamped against them and destroyed the increase of the earth. They're saying, so now, not only did they start taking their crops, not only did they start pillaging the things that they had planted, but after they did that, they just poisoned their vines. You don't want to share with us. I'm a heathen, so what does the heathen typically do? If I can't have it, what? You can't have it, right? And they encamped against them and destroyed the increase of the earth till thou come unto Gaza and left no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep nor ox nor ass. What else? So now, not only did they start pillaging and stealing their food, but the oxen, the sheep, right? What's the sheep for? Say it again. Yes. Not only the sacrifice, but the wool. So in the winter months, guess what? You're taking our sheep. We can't even shear our sheep to make garments so we can survive in the wintertime, right? The oxen plow, right? So not only did you take my crops, then you destroyed my crops. When it's time for me to go ahead and plant some more, I can't even plow the field because now y'all running through our ox, right? This is who they're dwelling with. Why did this happen? Because the children of Israel did not do what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to wipe these people out. That's why time after time, God keep having to send them a judge. If not for their own self-awareness or lack thereof, they're not in this situation. I thought about this. How many times do I lack a certain amount of self-awareness and I have to cry out to the Lord and then he send your judge or he bail me out because I didn't do what he asked me to do? Does this sound familiar? Chapter 53 of Patriarchs and Prophets. For you, it will be 543-ish. Yes. This here, paragraph 2. The Lord had faithfully fulfilled on his part the promises made to Israel. Joshua had broken the power of the Canaanites and had distributed the land to the tribes. It only remained for them thrusting out. It only remained for them trusting in the assurance of divine aid to complete the work of the dispossessing of the inhabitants of the land. But this they failed to do by entering into league with the Canaanites. They directly transgressed the commandment of God and thus failed to fulfill the condition on which he had promised to place them in possession of Canaan. Now look at what's happening to them. I wish I would like to see your face if you came home and your neighbor is in your refrigerator. How would you feel? Not only one neighbor, but your whole block, right? I mean, technically, you are Israelites and they are unbelievers, right? Okay. It's only in this case, you could not convert everybody on your block. But if we were extrapolating it to today, we would at least have to try and proselytize our neighborhood, right? Wouldn't it be better to convert the neighbor to the left, the neighbor to the right, knowing that, okay, you have at least two people to the right and left of you that believe what you believe. So if need be, y'all can lean on each other, right? The children of Israel did not have any of that. All of the surrounding nations did not believe what they believed. So much so, Sister White states that they were looking for opportunity to annihilate them. Remember, we showed earlier that they almost wiped them all out in Moses' time. They almost wiped the Midians out. But that little few that survived began to multiply. And do you think they forgot what happened? Sister White says they were waiting on the opportunity to pounce on them anytime they could. So now you have skirmishes amongst them. That whole reference where it says that they coming in, they're eating the crops and stuff like that, that's how Gideon ended up at the wine press. They fighting consistently. They at odds consistently because they don't believe what the children of Israelites believe. I would never go to Sister Lottie's house and just open the door, kick my feet up, and start eating her grapes, right? Who does that? That's what the world would do, right? But we as Christians would never go over to our brethren's house, steal from him, take things right in front of his face, and then if he protests, put kerosene on the plant as I leave. Well, I can't have none of your sorrow, Leroy. Okay, fine. And when Leroy turned his back, I pour kerosene on his sorrow plants. That's what the Midianites are doing to them. That's how Gideon ended up at the wine press instead of the threshing floor. If he'd have went to the threshing floor, he would have had to fight for the little bit he was threshing. The wine presses were not being used at that time of year. That's how he ended up over there. So in order to keep from fighting for the little bit of wheat that he's trying to thresh, what did he do? He went over to the wine press. That's how the Lord even approached him. The backstory to this is Gideon was the last of his father's sons. Gideon stood out, which I found very interesting concerning us as, once again, Christians, today's spiritual Israelites. Gideon stood out. Shouldn't we be standing out somehow, some way, right? You see how Gideon left where the conflict was and went over to try and get some kind of peace and solace to thresh his wheat so he can eat in peace. We don't have to subject ourselves to that. Right now, we living in the cities, but you know what time it is concerning that, right? Y'all saw what happened this past 2 weeks in the Midwest? Those tornadoes that went through? That sounds, did that trigger you as odd for tornadic weather to go through Tornado Alley? Let me tell you why that was odd. December is not a month for tornadic weather, even if it's in the Midwest. I've driven through the Midwest. For as far as you can see, everything is flat. So when the straight line winds go through there, there's nothing to knock it down like here on the east, where you have some rolling hills and you have things to dissipate a straight line wind. So when those straight line winds come through, they develop into tornadoes, and the tornadoes just ride. They said one of those tornadoes was a 1/4 mile wide and stayed on the ground for over 200 miles. That is ridiculously unheard of. And the thought went back to my mind, because things are let go in the land we live in. In Great Controversy, she says, what you call in climate change, she describes as the Lord slowly removing the chains he got holding Satan, because this is the stuff Satan wants to do. And Satan will have the chance, the ability to manipulate the weather. I want you to think about this whenever you hear these things. And in the same news story, they'll tell you, oh, this is another success for the LGBT community. Why you think that is? Why you think a 1/4 mile wide tornado could ride for 200 miles through a nation that will prosecute me if I own a business and a homosexual couple comes in and say, we want you to make a garment commemorating our union, and I say no, and they run me out of business, right? Completely run me out of business. I'm on social media, I'm intolerant, I'm unaccepting. Remember that when you hear about a tornado riding the ground for 200 miles. How can that movement make more progress than the civil rights movement in such a short amount of time? Think about that. What, 60, 70 years ago, me and Sister Rose couldn't be in the same building. I would have to go to the back, right? In less than 30 years, laws have been passed stating that I have to call you what you feel like being called. Even though I was born a man, if I tell you I identify as Sister Minty, you gotta address me as Sister Minty. Not only do you have to address me as Sister Minty, I can go into the ladies' restroom because I feel today like I'm a woman. That's where we are. That's where the children of Israel were. Mind you, if you read further along in chapter 53, she states, just before Gideon was called, after Barak, after Deborah, after Ehud did all these freeing, the children of Israel still mingling around with the other nations. They letting their sons and daughters marry the unbelievers amongst them. So now there's no division. right? They're letting the sons and daughters marry. This makes it extremely difficult to detach when you see wrongdoing, right? If your son, God forbid, Juwan, marries a heathen and they have some kids, you think Dora not gonna love her grandkids? You think when the grandchildren look in Dora in the face and she see Jawan in the grandkids, but Jawan's wife is a heathen and she pulling Jawan this way, but she love her grandkids so much she don't want to go. Really? That's what's going on here. And it makes it extremely difficult, brothers and sisters, to detach. Without Christ, if somebody in the family has to say, this is not cool. Do we know the backstory on Joash? Joash was Gideon's father. You know what Joash did? He erected altars to the heathen gods. That's how bad it had gotten. So now God has to get Gideon to right things. Right? We know about the 300 or so men Gideon took with him. We understand that. We grasp that firmly, right? We're talking about all of these other backstories that could have been avoided by the children of Israel had they done what they were supposed to do. So now Gideon has a dad that has accepted heathen doctrine. He's told to bring that thing down. My dad's about 80 years old, somewhere thereabouts. My dad has children younger than the children I have. So the man still can, he can still function. What do you think Gideon's dad would have did if he told him, I'm about to knock this altar down right now, broad daylight in front of all y'all, right? As old as my dad is, I will not pop off at the mouth of my dad. I'm not just gonna outright openly mouth my dad. I don't care how old he is. I'm not gonna do it. I know better. And it's even though there's respect, there's a certain amount of fear I have for my dad. Okay? Because I know he could very well hit me like a man, like not a slap, but a punch, So respectfully, Gideon could not in broad daylight knock down these altars. What did he have to do? He had to do it at night. And when the people of the town woke up and saw that their altar was knocked down, how do you think they felt? They went looking for Gideon. They went to Joash and told Joash, where your boy at? We're going to have to kill him. You see the strife that's being caused in one family from dwelling amongst heathens, right? Or letting the heathens dwell amongst us, right? Go to 544, paragraph 1. God had placed his people in Canaan as a mighty breastwork to stay the tide of moral evil, that it might not flood the world. If faithful to him, God intended that Israel should go on conquering and to conquer. He would give into their hands nations greater and more powerful than the Canaanites. The promise was, if ye diligently keep all these commandments which I command you, then will the Lord drive out these nations from before you. And ye shall possess greater nations and mightier than yourselves. Every place whereon the soles of your feet shall tread shall be yours. From the wilderness of Lebanon, from the river Euphrates, even unto the uttermost sea shall your coast be. There shall no man be able to stand before you, for the Lord your God shall lay the fear of you and the dread of you upon the land that ye shall tread upon, as he hath said unto you. Why couldn't they do these things? Because you let the Midianites hang out right there amongst you. You didn't keep the commandments, you didn't keep the principles, So now when you start having all these trifles and this stuff going in your home, in your neighborhood, who you got to think, right? It says right here, they were supposed to run them out. So because they didn't run them out, now they are the thorn in the prick in your eye. That's how she describes it. That's how the Bible describes it. They will be that, you ever go against sticker bras running through, and then as soon as one hit, you do like that? That's what's going on with the Israelites, right? When some kind of debris flies into your eye, and that quick little jolt you do, but you can't quite find it, and sometimes you had to get somebody to blow into your eye to get it out. That's how those nations were unto the children of Israel. Y'all know how irritating that is? Who wears contacts? Anybody here ever wore contacts? You've had debris in your contact rubbing up against your eyeball every time you move your eye to the side, to the left, to the right, you can feel it. That's what the Midianites were unto them. That's how Gideon ended up being called. But before Gideon could even take care of all this stuff, he had to handle stuff in his own house, right? Go to verse 7 of chapter 6. And it came to pass when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord because of the Midianites, that the Lord sent the prophet, the children of Israel, which said unto them, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I brought you up from Egypt and brought you forth out of the house of bondage and delivered you unto the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of those that oppressed you, and drave them out from before you, and gave you their land. And I said unto you, I am the Lord your God. Fear not the gods of the Amorites, in whose land ye dwell, but ye have not obeyed my voice. Isn't that what Gideon's father did? Told him, don't fear their gods. But he went and erected an altar to them, right? Why are these things so important to us today, brothers and sisters? We put Proverbs as our memory verse. The fear of the ear that heareth the reproof of life abideth amongst the wise. I'm sorry, that's 32. He that refuseth instruction despiseth his own soul. But he that heareth reproof getteth understanding. The fear of the Lord is the instruction of wisdom, and before honor is humility. Gideon had already shown a certain amount of humility. That's how he ended up over there. Not being willing to fight over the wheat he was going to thresh, not wanting to have to deal with the nonsense that was going on of his day, is what put him in a position where the Lord could get to him. After he was chosen, he needed some kind of assurances. And even then, when you read on in chapter 53, the way he asked for those assurances were still in a humble way. However, Gideon is a very, very good example of how oftentimes we can get certain blessings. We don't know how to handle these blessings, and then the blessings end up being our downfall. Because we found out later on that after Gideon did so much of this conquering, he kind of got a little bit full of himself. Do we understand what he did as far as making himself a priest? Gideon actually made himself an ephod so he can serve in the role of the priest, right? I said it before, whenever Pastor Herbert asked me to make a presentation, I told him I didn't feel qualified. It's only because I study and I feel like I can verbally present what the Lord is stating in a lot of his works, that it makes me an effective speaker. I realize I have a certain amount of gift of gab, but for me to do what Gideon did would be the equivalent of me now using my gift of gab to take advantage of people or to con people. That's in essence what Gideon did. He went from being their judge, the person that redeemed them out of the hands of the Midianites, to now asking the Ishmaelites for their jewelry and making himself an ephod. Ephods were solely restricted for who? The priest, right? Solely for the priest. So how you go from a judge to this? That would be like me being the deacon and then making myself an elder tomorrow, right? That's essentially what he did. How did he get to this point? We familiar with his father, right? Joash was a prime example. I've read this in child guidance of how children will see their parents doing wrong things, even though they're Adventists. They'll see their kids poo-pooing one aspect of the doctrine, one aspect of the gospel, right? You'll be Adventist, y'all will be 5, 6, 7 generation Adventists. But you still eat a little pork every now and then. You still like a little drink every now and then. And the children watch this. So it makes it very difficult for them to take the truth as seriously when they get into their adulthood. This is one of the things Gideon watched, because you have Gideon, you have his father, and then you have Gideon's son. So now the son is watching Gideon do this. He redeemed the Israelites, but then he made himself a priest. How do you think that affects the son, right? You have one generation do wrong. The dad erect the altar, knowing right from wrong. The dad erect the altar to the heathen god, and then the son go redeem them. But because he has seen his dad kind of toy with the religion every now and then, he don't take it quite as seriously as the daddy. So when he get his chance, yeah, he redeemed Israel, but he just gonna make himself a priest also. And Gideon's son saw him do this. So what are the chances? What are the odds now? When Gideon's son gets of a certain age, is he gonna quite take the truth as seriously? This is serious business. All because they didn't have the presence of mind, the wherewithal, the self-awareness to do what God asked them to do. We're not having this conversation if they ran them off the reservation to begin with, right? You're not having a tornado skip on the ground for 200 miles if what? Google search, don't Google search, put in your Bible app in parentheses, sodomite. Every instance I found, what did God do? Run them off the reservation or kill them. I'm not advocating murder. Okay? But we live now in a country where, like the Midianites and the children of Israel, we are looked upon as the bad guys for not accepting some of the standards that the world is pushing upon us. You know, they had a story where they're blaming Google and Facebook and social media for some of these kids' morale and self-esteem being so shot. Because on social media, people only show you the best aspects of their life, right? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, they only show you the best aspects of how they're getting along in life, how they're doing so well. They never show you any catastrophic thing happening to them, right? What's real about that? What's real about things just completely going your way on a daily basis? You know what happened to me the last 2 weeks? The truck I'm supposed to take to Pittsburgh, they kept giving my truck to somebody. The same truck I wrote up 3 times for the mirror not working, the light sometimes don't work. It's a Volvo, so People in the industry know Volvos inherently have these electronic problems when it comes to tractors. But I knew, working for the company I work for, life is not roses. Life is not perfect. I know during the course of my day, things are not perfect, things are not roses. So I have to approach it as such. Like modern day Israel, I need to approach it to where I'm still standing in the presence of my God, and I need to walk accordingly. The Israelites did not do that. And they had generations upon generations. They had Joash, his son, Gideon, and Gideon's child looking at the heathenism go on in front of him, so much so that his dad decided to entertain himself in it. So much so that when Gideon was not strong in his faith, what did he do? He decided to make himself a priest. 7, chapter 7 of Judges 6. Then Jerubbaal, who is Gideon, and all the people that were with him rose up early and pitched beside the well of Harod, so that the host of Midian were on the north side of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people that are with thee are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel vaunt themselves against me, saying, mine own hand hath saved me. How many of y'all want these pews to be full of churchgoers? Right? Would you like that? Anybody? Would you like that? For our numbers to just fill up this place, so much so that we had to move to a bigger location. Would you like that? Would you? Yeah? You would like that? What if this place was full of all those people, but only the people you visibly see were Christians? How does it feel now? You okay with that? We are here for a reason, right? Y'all passed umpteen Seventh-day Adventist churches to get to this one, right? That's nothing to be ashamed of. When you invite somebody here and they come and they visit, they get the truth, they leave, and then they tell you something like, well, y'all don't have a big congregation, you know, the pastor not up in the pulpit, jumping up and down, screaming, and moonwalking up and down the pew, you know, the songs sound a little dead and stuff like that. You make sure you tell them this is the standard. The other stuff you see going on is Midianite stuff. Okay? You make sure you let them know this the standard right here. That we doing it how it's supposed to be done. The stuff you watching, the stuff you're accustomed to, the things you have become and let seep into your psyche and your way of life, that's Midianite-ish things. Okay? Make sure you tell your loved one, that your family member, that the friend you invite to visit, make sure they know. Draw this scenario with them, draw this correlation with them, and let them know, I know you see it around you. I know it look good. I know it's entertaining to you, but just like the children of Israel and the Midianites that was amongst them, all this so-called Christianity is not Christianity. Y'all watching heathen stuff, okay? Make sure they know that. Make sure they have that understanding, because I've often been told by coworkers, friends, family, when I invite them, they give me that same story. Why your pastor so subdued? What you want him to do? Right? You want for somebody to be on the organ, and whenever he raise his voice and inflect, the person on the organ do something, and then somebody back there fall out, and all the deaconess have to run over to him with the fans and do it. That's not what's going on. Make sure they know all the women at our church got their clothes on. When a woman in our church walks down the aisle, men don't They don't, none of the men snap their necks to see flesh in our church. Make sure they know that. Make sure they know there are no effeminate men in our church. You know what effeminate means? There's no men in our church whose sexuality can be questioned. It's a reason for that. Those verses in Proverbs make sure that the Christian is aware whose authority he is under. Right? Make sure the Christian is aware of who he's supposed to represent. Right? The Christian should be humble enough that a brother could come to him and say, hey, Minty, I seen you wearing a pink tank top on social media. What's that about? You know, did I see a little blush or mascara on you? What's going on with that? Right? And I say to that brother, hey, you know what? That's the style. That's the style of the day. But I know it seems questionable, so I'm gonna have to cut that out. Right? We should be able to do that to one another and for one another. There should not be so much pride amongst us, just like with the children of Israel. Somebody should have pulled Joash aside and said, hey, did you just erect an altar to Baal? Nobody could do that to him. So his son had to go in the middle of the night and knock the altar down. How many of us are in here? We can't be told nothing by those amongst us right now, right? But it'll take an act of violence or an act of God or some catastrophic to get our attention before we realize, oh, my altar has been knocked down. I probably wasn't supposed to have the altar in the first place, right? Joash's father, when you read the interaction Joash's father had with those people when they came to kill Gideon, when you read what Joash said to them, he came to a realization. Probably wasn't the best thing for me to do to erect the altar in the first place. In chapter 53, Sister White goes on to display that. That man didn't turn around with the rest of the people and say, boy, why you knock down my altar? You know, we worshiping Baal over here. You know how we do it. No. It took that act to make him contrite enough to where he defended his son when they came looking to kill him. Does it take that with us? Do we really know how bad the Lord can make it? And God is not without a sense of irony. The fact that it was his son that knocked down the altar. You know what I'm saying? You're going to kill your child? You're going to kill your own child? You're going to let the townspeople kill your own child? Right? Why the child do it? Because he saw, why the child make his own ephod and go halfway, go astray like that? He saw Joash do it. Y'all see how these things create like a domino effect, right? You see how now in our nation, dominoes are being slowly pushed aside, right? Laws are being slowly let to the side. And then when the catastrophic events happen, you make sure you witness to your coworker, to your friend, to your family. When they ask you, how can that happen in December? Tornadic weather in the Midwest is for spring and summer, sometimes fall, depending on how warm it is, right? The fact that I don't think y'all grasp what a 1/4 mile wide wind funnel, 150 miles an hour looks like, snatching up debris for 200 miles. They had a story where they were asking people in Illinois, if you find anything from Kentucky, post it online so we can find out who it belongs to. So from Kentucky to Illinois, wind is whipping at 155 miles an hour, category 4, that's what it was. 155 miles an hour, so much so that it's taking things from Kentucky and airdropping it somewhere in Illinois. Right? Remember that the next time a volcano goes erupt, the next time the ground shake, because that's coming. Sister White says it's coming. We ain't seen nothing yet, brothers and sisters. As these laws are relaxed, I read it. I can't give you the page, but it's in great controversy. As every law is repealed that made the United States such a unique nation, as they begin to be repealed and tossed down, as religion and structure begins to be repealed and tossed down, what does Sister White say gonna happen? This stuff gonna increase. My only prayer is that I'm not caught in a 200-mile long, quarter-mile wide tornado because I'm holding on to something myself that's gonna cause me. Remember, we as Christians, we're gonna be seeing this and witnessing to others. We should not be victim to these things. You understand? You have that understanding, right? Okay, so because we know what we know and we pray for God's protection, we do not, the Israelites did not fall prey to these things unless what? Holding on to something, right? Holding on to something. We find out these last plagues that will go on, who do they affect? The rest of the world, right? They don't affect the Christians. They don't affect the true children of God, right? So here's our opportunity. Do what we're supposed to do. Let's have a certain amount of self-awareness, brothers and sisters. As I close, let's have a certain amount of self-awareness to where we realize my sons, my daughters watching me, my neighbors watching me. If I have issue with my neighbor, if I can't convert you, I'm gonna have to get as far away from you as I can because you are gonna be a detriment to me. I cannot let my children marry you. I don't care about your degree. I don't care about your schooling. I don't care about your family lineage. If you do not believe what I believe, my child cannot be in union with you because now I have to look at my grandkids that are heathens, and I have a conflict in my heart whenever I pick up one of my grandkids, change their diaper or kiss their boo-boo. I know one of your parents could possibly take you right to hell. God is good, brothers and sisters.
Amen. Thank God for another message. We eat the good of the land. Praise the Lord. We shall end our service by singing hymn. Is it 368? 286.